They called me tainted when the starlight began eating through my black fur. My own mate stood before our pack and declared me defective, corrupted, unworthy of love. He severed our bond and threw me into the frozen wasteland to die alone. I should have accepted that fate. But then I found him a massive white wolf drowning in his own poisoned blood, his heart failing with each labored breath. I had a choice. Use the last fragments of my shattered soul to save a dying stranger, or finally let the cold take us both. One of us was supposed to be a king, the other was just a broken wolf with a curse. I chose wrong, or maybe I chose right for the first time in my miserable life. Before you hear what happened next, I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment, tell me where you're listening from, tell me if you've ever felt thrown away by someone who was supposed to love you. Your words, your likes, your shares, that's what keeps Judy's romance library alive. The algorithm doesn't care about quiet heartbreak. It needs noise. So make some noise for me. Please. Chapter 1. The Shadow and the Snow. The blizzard stopped too suddenly, and I knew something was wrong. 3 weeks in the Frostlands teaches you things. Unnatural silence means death is close. Either something is hunting or something is dying. Sometimes both. I should have run, but I was so tired, bone deep, soul-crushing tired. The kind of exhaustion that comes from wandering between northern packs, begging for scraps, hiding the broken bond that stank on my fur like rotting meat. 3 weeks since Drax Ironjaw stood before the entire Shadowpine pack and destroyed me. I can still hear his voice, cold, disgusted, final. Your fur is corrupted. Look at you, those silver patches spreading like disease. The moon goddess made a mistake pairing us. I will not doom my bloodline with something defective. The bond snapped. I felt it tear through my chest like claws ripping out my heart. And every wolf in that clearing, wolves I'd healed, wolves I'd grown up with, wolves I'd called family, they just watched. No one defended me. No one questioned him. The starlight patches on my black fur pulsed and shimmered as he spoke, as if they were listening to my humiliation. I tried to hide them, tried to press myself into the ground, but they only glowed brighter. They'd started appearing 6 months ago. Small at first, just a shimmer along my shoulders, like someone had spilled moonlight on my coat. I thought they were beautiful. Grandmother would have known what they meant, but she'd been dead 2 years, and no one else remembered the old stories. Drax called them rot, corruption, a stain. He threw me out before the rejection ceremony even finished. That was 3 weeks ago. Now, I was nothing. A rejected mate with a diseased coat, wandering the frozen wasteland and offering healing services to packs that could barely stand to look at me. I was good at healing, exceptional, even. Grandmother had trained me in the ancient lifeweaver techniques most modern wolves had forgotten. But skill doesn't matter when wolves smell failure on you. Rejection has a scent. It seeps into your fur, your breath, your very soul. It screams, unwanted, broken, defective. I should have found shelter before sunset. Should have stopped walking hours ago. But the nearest settlement was still a day away, and besides, sleeping alone in the frozen wilderness didn't scare me anymore. Nothing scared me anymore. Not after you've had your heart ripped out in front of witnesses. Then I heard it. A sound that made my blood turn to ice. A deep, guttural growl so low it vibrated through the frozen ground beneath my paws. Not a normal wolf. Something massive. Something powerful. Something dying. Every survival instinct I had left screamed at me to turn around. Run. Sounds like that in the Frostlands meant apex predators. Territorial alphas. Feral rogues desperate enough to kill anything that moved. But the starlight patches on my shoulders and flanks, they reacted. They flared so bright I could see them glowing through my matted, ice-crusted fur, pulsing, pulling, like they were being drawn toward whatever was making that sound. My paws moved before my brain could stop them. I crested the ice ridge and my breath died in my throat. Lying in a crater of blood-soaked snow was the largest wolf I had ever seen. His fur was pure white, not the dirty gray-white of northern wolves, but blinding, pristine, impossible white, like freshly fallen snow under a full moon. Even collapsed and dying, he radiated raw power. His massive frame was all muscle and lethal grace, his paws bigger than my head. But it was the wrongness that made me stumble. An arrow jutted from his shoulder, black as midnight. The blood around the wound wasn't red, it was dark, thick, spreading like ink beneath his white fur. The air around him felt poisoned, heavy with a spiritual rot I could taste on my tongue. Nightshade hemlock. My heart stopped. I'd only seen it once, in grandmother's oldest scrolls. A poison designed to kill the unkillable. It turned blood to shadow, stopping the heart unless a lifeweaver intervened. And there were maybe 3 lifeweavers left in the entire realm. I was one of them. The white wolf's eyes cracked open, burning amber, unfocused with pain. Even dying, there was something ancient in that gaze, something that didn't beg, something that commanded. My starlight patches exploded with light. They pulsed in perfect rhythm with his failing heartbeat. I could feel it the way his heart stuttered, the way the poison crawled deeper with each ragged breath. Minutes. He had minutes. I stood there, trembling at the edge of the crater. A rejected, broken wolf with a shattered bond and a corrupted gift, staring at a dying stranger who could be anyone, an alpha king, a rogue tyrant, a monster. I had no reason to save him. Saving him would take everything I had left. The Lifeweaver ritual didn't just drain energy, it drained life, and I had so little life left in me. But then his eyes met mine, and there was no disgust, no revulsion, no horror at the starlight patches blazing across my black fur. Just hope, desperate, fading, real. Something inside me cracked. No one had looked at me like that since the rejection. I dropped to my knees beside him, my paws sinking into the blood-soaked snow. "Don't you dare die on me, White Wolf," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I didn't survive 3 weeks of hell just to watch you bleed out alone." I pressed my paws to the wound. The starlight in my fur ignited. And the pain, oh gods, the pain, it felt like my soul was being ripped apart and set on fire. The nightshade hemlock fought me, a living darkness that clawed at my light, trying to drag me down with him. But I held on, because maybe, just maybe, saving him would prove that I wasn't broken, that the thing everyone called a curse was actually a gift, that I wasn't defective, that I was exactly what the moon goddess intended me to be, even if it killed me, especially if it killed me. Because dying to save someone felt a lot more meaningful than dying alone in the snow, thrown away like garbage by a mate who never deserved me. The white wolf's heartbeat steadied beneath my paws. Mine began to fade. Chapter 2. The King's Recognition. I woke up to warmth. That was wrong. I should have been cold. Dead, probably. The Lifeweaver ritual wasn't supposed to leave survivors, not when you were already running on fumes, not when you poured everything you had left into a stranger's poisoned veins. But I was warm, and breathing, and alive. My eyes cracked open to amber. The white wolf was staring at me, not at me, into me. Those burning amber eyes held an intelligence that made my breath catch. He wasn't just awake. He was studying me with an intensity that made me want to crawl backward into the snow. Except I couldn't move. My body felt like it had been shattered and poorly reassembled. Every muscle screamed. My starlight patches, the ones Drax had called diseased, corrupted. A stain on my bloodline, they pulsed weakly against my black fur, barely glowing, drained, used up. Just like the rest of me. "You're awake," the white wolf rumbled. His voice was deep, commanding. The kind of voice that didn't ask questions, it expected answers. But there was something else underneath, something that sounded almost like awe. No, that couldn't be right. No one looked at me with awe anymore. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. All that came out was a pathetic rasp. The white wolf shifted, and I realized with horror that I was draped across him. My body had collapsed over his during the ritual, my starlight-marked fur pressed against his pure white coat. I must have looked like a parasite, a disease, the mark of the weaver, he whispered. I froze. He wasn't looking at my face. He was staring at the silver patches scattered across my shoulders and flanks, the ones that had gotten me rejected, exiled, thrown away like garbage. His massive head lowered, and before I could move, his nose brushed against the largest patch on my shoulder. I flinched, waiting for the disgust, the recoil, the inevitable declaration that I was tainted, corrupted, wrong. It never came. Instead, the starlight patch under his touch flared, bright, warm, alive. The white wolf inhaled sharply, pulling back just enough to meet my eyes. You're a life weaver. Not a question, a statement of fact, spoken with a reverence I hadn't heard in. Gods. I couldn't remember the last time anyone spoke to me like I was something precious instead of something broken. I don't. My voice cracked. I didn't know what to say. Grandmother had called me that once, before she died. But after the patches started appearing and Drax turned them into weapons against me, I'd stopped believing her, stopped believing I was anything more than defective. How long have you been wandering alone? His voice was softer now, but no less intense. 3 weeks, I whispered. Since my mate, the word burned coming out. Former mate rejected me, said I was corrupted, that the moon goddess made a mistake. Something dangerous flickered in those amber eyes. His lip curled, showing a flash of teeth that could tear through bone. Your mate was a fool. The blunt statement hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent 3 weeks believing Drax was right, that I was defective, that something was wrong with me. And here was this stranger, this massive, powerful wolf who radiated authority like heat, calling Drax a fool without hesitation. I didn't realize I was crying until I tasted salt on my tongue. You saved my life, the white wolf continued, his voice steady, grounding. The nightshade hemlock should have killed me within the hour. But you, a life weaver with the mark burning across your fur, you chose to drain yourself to save a stranger. I didn't know what else to do, I admitted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. You were dying, and your eyes. You looked at me like I wasn't, my voice broke, like I wasn't a mistake. He was silent for a long moment. Then, carefully, so carefully it made my chest ache, he shifted his weight and stood. I slid off him into the blood-stained snow, my legs too weak to hold me. Before I could even try to stand, he lowered himself and gently, impossibly gently, for a wolf his size, nosed under my body. What are you? You can barely stand, he said simply. And you're coming with me. Panic spiked through my exhaustion. I don't even know who you are. Those amber eyes met mine again, and for the first time, I saw the weight behind them, the authority, the power. My name is Riven Moonstone, he said quietly. Alpha King of the Northern Realms. The world tilted. Alpha King. I'd saved the Alpha King, the wolf every pack whispered about in reverent tones, the pure white legend who ruled the largest territory in the north. And I was a rejected nobody with corrupted fur. You don't want me, I stammered, trying to pull away. I'm broken. Everyone says so. The patches are the rarest gift the moon goddess grants. Riven interrupted, his voice firm. The mark of the weaver hasn't been seen in 3 generations, and you're telling me your pack threw you out for it? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. He lowered his head until his nose touched the largest starlight patch on my shoulder again. This time, when it flared, the light spread, racing across every silver mark on my fur until I was glowing like a constellation. "You're coming to the royal den," Riven said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You're going to rest, eat, heal. And then you're going to tell me the name of the alpha who was stupid enough to reject a lifeweaver." "Why?" The question came out as a broken whisper. His eyes softened, just slightly, but enough to crack something inside my chest. "Because you saved my life when you had every reason to let me die. Because you're clearly too stubborn to take care of yourself. And because," he paused, something fierce flickering across his face, "because the moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. Your former mate did." Before I could protest, he carefully lifted me onto his back. I was too weak to fight, too shocked to argue, too shattered to do anything but press my face into his pure white fur and try not to fall apart completely. As Riven began walking through the frozen wasteland, carrying a rejected wolf he'd just met, my starlight patches pulsed against his white coat. For the first time in 3 weeks, I didn't feel like a mistake. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I'd been running towards something instead of away from everything. Even if I had no idea what that something was. Chapter 3. The Superstition of the Scars. I woke up in silk. Not snow, not frozen ground, not the hard-packed dirt of a borrowed den where I wasn't really welcome. Silk. My eyes snapped open and panic hit me like an avalanche. The royal den. I was in the royal den. Riven had carried me here while I was too weak to protest, and now I was lying on actual silk bedding in a chamber so large my entire birth pack could have fit inside it. This was wrong. This was all wrong. I didn't belong here. The starlight patches on my fur caught the morning light filtering through the den entrance, and they glowed bright silver against my black coat. Beautiful, Grandmother would have said. Corrupted, Drax had declared before he ripped our bond apart. I lurched upright, my body still aching but functional. I needed to leave, now. Before Riven woke up and realized what a mistake he'd made bringing a defective wolf into his home. Before his pack saw me and started whispering. Before, "You're awake." I spun around so fast I nearly fell over. Riven stood at the den entrance, backlit by winter sunlight that made his pure white fur look like freshly fallen snow. Massive, powerful, every inch the Alpha King. And I was a rejected nobody covered in patches his wolves would call a disease. "I should go," I blurted out, scrambling backward. My legs tangled in the silk and I nearly face-planted. "I shouldn't be here. This is I don't belong." "Stop." One word. Spoken quietly, but with enough authority that my body obeyed before my brain caught up. Riven walked toward me, his amber eyes locked on mine. Not angry, not disgusted, just watching, reading me like I was a scroll he was trying to decipher. I pressed myself against the far wall of the den, trying to make myself smaller, trying to hide the silver patches that had ruined my life. I twisted, attempting to angle my body so the largest ones on my shoulders weren't visible. It was useless. They glowed brighter the more anxious I got. "What are you doing?" Riven asked, his voice careful. "Trying not to." My voice cracked. Everyone stares at them, the patches. They think I'm sick, cursed. Drax said they proved I was rotting from the inside out. Saying it out loud made it real again, made the rejection fresh. I could still see the disgust on Drax's face when he looked at my fur. Could still hear the whispers from pack members who'd once called me beautiful. "Look at her. The silver is spreading." What if it's contagious? The moon goddess is taking back her blessing. I'd tried everything. Mud, ash, rolling in pine needles to mask the glow. Nothing worked. The patches just pulsed brighter, like they were mocking my attempts to hide. "Look at me," Riven said. I couldn't. If I looked at him, I'd see at that moment when reality set in, when he'd realize that bringing me here was a mistake, when he'd look at my starlight-marked fur with the same revulsion Drax had. I couldn't survive that. Not again. "Sable." My name in his voice was a command and a plea. "Look at me." I forced my eyes up. He was closer now. Close enough that I could see the faint scars along his shoulder where the nightshade hemlock arrow had pierced him. Close enough that his scent, pine and winter storms and something wild wrapped around me like a blanket. His gaze dropped to the largest patch on my shoulder, the one I'd been trying to hide. Here it comes, I thought. The disgust, the rejection, the... Riven lowered his head and nuzzled it. I stopped breathing. His nose pressed gently against the silver fur, and the patch erupted with light warmer and brighter than I'd ever seen it glow. The warmth spread through my entire body, chasing away the cold that had lived in my bones since the rejection. "What are you doing?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Showing you what I see," Riven murmured against my fur. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes, and what I saw there made my chest crack open. Not disgust, not pity. Reverence. "These patches," he said quietly, moving to nuzzle another one along my flank, "are not a curse. They're not a disease. They're the mark of the weaver, a gift so rare that most wolves live their entire lives without ever meeting someone who bears it." "That's not," Drax said. Drax was an ignorant fool who threw away the greatest gift the moon goddess could have given him. Riven's voice hardened. "And I'm starting to think that rejection was the goddess's way of protecting you from spending your life with someone too blind to see what was right in front of him." Tears burned behind my eyes. I tried to blink them back, but they came anyway, hot and fast and 3 weeks overdue. "Everyone in my pack agreed with him," I choked out. "Everyone. They watched him reject me, and no one said a word, because they all saw the same thing. He did something wrong, something broken." Riven nuzzled the patch on my shoulder again, and this time, the glow spread across every silver mark on my body. I lit up like a constellation, and the warmth was so intense I thought I might shatter from it. "Then your entire pack was blind," he said simply. "Because I see strength. I see a wolf who drained herself to save a dying stranger. I see the rarest blessing the moon goddess grants, and I see someone too stubborn to die in the snow even when she had every reason to give up." "You don't know me," I whispered. "No," he agreed. "Not yet, but I know enough." He shifted, settling beside me, his pure white fur pressed against my black and silver coat. The contrast was stark. Beautiful, even, like night and day curled together. The starlight patches where our fur touched glowed so bright the entire den filled with soft silver light. "Your former mate saw these patches and called them rot," Riven said quietly. "I see them and I see salvation, because without them, without you, I'd be dead in the Frostlands right now." I couldn't speak, couldn't process what was happening. 3 weeks ago, my mate had looked at these exact same patches with revulsion, had called me defective, had severed our bond because I was unworthy. And now the Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the Northern Realms, was pressed against me, making my cursed fur glow like I was something precious. "I don't understand," I whispered. Riven's amber eyes met mine, and something in them made my broken heart stutter. "You will," he said softly. "Stay. Rest. Let me prove to you that what you call a curse is actually the very thing that makes you irreplaceable." The word hung in the air between us. Irreplaceable. No one had ever called me that, not even before the rejection. I should have pulled away, should have protected myself, should have remembered that hope was dangerous and trust was how you got your heart ripped out. But when Riven nuzzled the silver patch on my shoulder one more time, and it blazed so bright I could feel the warmth down to my bones, I let myself believe him. Just for a moment. just long enough to whisper, "Okay." His eyes flashed with something fierce and protective and entirely overwhelming. "Good," he murmured, "because I'm not letting you run. Not until you see yourself the way I see you." And that terrified me more than anything. Because what if I started believing him and then he changed his mind? Chapter 4. The Winter Bloom. I heard the crying before I saw him. Small, broken sobs coming from somewhere in the royal den's sprawling network of chambers. The kind of crying that comes from a place so deep that words can't reach it anymore. I knew that kind of crying. I'd done plenty of it myself over the past 3 weeks. Riven had left an hour ago to deal with border patrol, and I'd been alone in the main chamber, still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I was staying. That the Alpha King had looked at my starlight patches and seen something worth protecting instead of something that needed to be thrown away. But those sobs pulled at something inside me, something that had nothing to do with my own broken heart and everything to do with the fact that I was a healer and someone was hurting. I followed the sound through a narrow passage that opened into a smaller den, a play area, I realized. Toys carved from wood were scattered across the floor. A small pile of soft furs sat bunched in the corner, and curled on top of them was the tiniest white wolf cub I'd ever seen. He couldn't have been more than 4 years old in human terms. His fur was the same, pure white as Riven's, but duller somehow, lifeless. His small body shook with each sob, and he had his paws pressed over his eyes like he was trying to block out the entire world. My heart cracked clean open. "Hey," I said softly, keeping my distance. Traumatized children didn't react well to strangers invading their space. "Are you okay?" Stupid question. He was clearly not okay. The cub's head snapped up, and I saw his eyes amber like Riven's, but clouded with a fear so deep it made me want to howl. He scrambled backward, pressing himself against the wall. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice hoarse from crying. "I didn't mean to be loud. I'll be quiet. Please don't." "Whoa, whoa," I interrupted gently, lowering myself to the ground to make myself smaller. Less threatening. "You didn't do anything wrong. Crying isn't something you need to apologize for." He stared at me like I'd just spoken a language he didn't understand. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "My name's Sable," I said. "I'm visiting." "What's your name?" "Calyx." He wiped at his eyes with a small paw, but fresh tears kept falling. "I'm the Alpha King's son. Riven's son." That explained the white fur, the amber eyes. But it didn't explain the terror radiating off this cub in waves. "It's nice to meet you, Calyx," I said carefully. "Do you want to tell me why you're crying? Maybe I can help." "No one can help," he said, and the hopelessness in his voice gutted me. "Mama's gone. She died and she's never coming back. And Father tries, but he's always so sad now, and I can't make it better." His words dissolved into sobs again, and before I could think about whether it was appropriate, I moved closer. "Can I sit with you?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. I settled beside him on the pile of furs, close enough that he could feel my presence, but not so close that I was invading his space. For a long moment, we just sat there, a broken cub and a rejected wolf, both drowning in grief we didn't know how to fix. "Losing someone you love is the worst pain in the world," I said quietly, "and I'm so sorry you're going through that." "Everyone says she's in a better place," Calyx whispered, "but I don't care about a better place. I want her here." Gods, this kid was destroying me. "Yeah," I agreed. "I bet you do." "Do you think I'm bad for feeling that way?" he asked, his voice small. "No," I said firmly. "I think you're honest and brave, because it takes courage to admit when you're hurting instead of pretending everything's fine." Calyx looked up at me with those clouded amber eyes, and something in them shifted, just slightly. Like maybe, just maybe, he believed me. "Your fur is weird," he said suddenly. I tensed. Here it comes, I thought. Even the cub sees the corruption. "The silver parts," Calyx continued, tilting his head. "They're pretty, like stars." I blinked. "You think they're pretty?" "Yeah." He reached out one small paw, hesitating before gently touching the largest patch on my shoulder. "Mama used to tell me stories about the night sky, about how the stars were wolves who loved so much that the moon goddess put them in the sky so they could watch over everyone forever." The patch under his paw flared with soft light. Calyx gasped, pulling back. "I'm sorry. Did I hurt you?" "No," I said quickly, surprised by the warmth spreading through my chest. "You didn't hurt me. It just reacts sometimes." "To what?" I didn't have an answer. The patches had glowed when I saved Riven, when Riven nuzzled them, and now when this grieving cub touched them with wonder instead of disgust. "I think they react to genuine feeling," I said slowly, "to real emotion." Calyx stared at the patch, then at me. "Can I touch it again?" "Of course." This time when his paw made contact, the glow spread, racing across every starlight mark on my fur until I was lit up like a constellation. But it wasn't just light, it was warmth, the kind that chases away cold and fear and loneliness. Calyx's eyes widened. "Whoa," and then he smiled. It was small, fragile, but real. My chest tightened. When was the last time I'd made someone smile? When was the last time anyone looked at me like I was something good? "Do you want to play?" I asked impulsively. "We could, I don't know, make up a game?" Calyx's smile grew. "Really? Really?" We spent the next hour playing a ridiculous game involving tossing carved wooden toys and making up increasingly absurd rules. Calyx laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was so pure it made me want to cry. At some point, I stopped thinking about my rejection, stopped worrying about whether I belonged here, stopped hiding my starlight patches. I just played with a cub who needed someone to see him, to care about him, to remind him that joy still existed even when grief felt suffocating. And something strange happened. My starlight patches started glowing brighter, warmer, not in response to touch this time, but in response to the genuine affection blooming in my chest for this sweet, broken cub who thought my corrupted fur looked like stars. The light radiated outward, filling the entire play den with soft silver warmth. Calyx froze mid-laugh. "Sable, look!" I followed his gaze downward, and my breath stopped. Grass. Small, delicate blades of green grass were pushing up through the packed snow on the floor of the den, growing, blooming. Where there should have been only frozen ground, life was sprouting, fed by the light pouring from my starlight patches. "How are you doing that?" Calyx whispered, his voice filled with awe. I don't know." But even as I said it, I felt it. The connection between my heart and my fur, the way the patches pulsed in rhythm with the genuine love I felt for this cub, the way the light responded to real emotion, not fear, not shame, but pure, uncomplicated affection. This wasn't corruption. This was creation. "You're magic," Calyx breathed. Before I could respond, a shadow filled the den entrance. Riven stood there, his amber eyes wide, staring at the impossible garden blooming in the middle of his son's play-den. At the cub, smiling for the first time in who knows how long. At me, glowing like a fallen star. "What?" His voice was rough, overwhelmed. "What is this?" I opened my mouth to explain, but I had no explanation. All I knew was that Calyx was happy, and my curse had just brought life to a place where only death and grief had lived. Riven's eyes met mine across the blooming grass. And what I saw there terrified me, because it looked an awful lot like hope. Chapter 5. The Healing of Calyx. Riven asked me to heal his son, and I wanted to run. Not because I couldn't do it, but because I was terrified of what would happen if I did. We stood in Calyx's sleeping chamber, Riven, the cub, and me. The grass I'd accidentally grown in the playden was still there, green and impossible, proof that my starlight patches could do more than just glow. They could create. But creation was easy compared to what Riven was asking now. His mother died 6 months ago, Riven said quietly, his voice thick with barely controlled grief. Calyx was there when it happened. He watched her. He saw everything. And since then, he has nightmares every night. He won't eat unless I force him. He flinches when wolves raise their voices. The healers say his spirit is fractured, that the trauma carved cracks into his mind that keep getting deeper. I looked at Calyx, curled small on his sleeping furs. His white fur was dull. His amber eyes were haunted. This wasn't just grief. This was a cub whose soul was shattering in slow motion. The healers can't fix it, Riven continued, and I heard the desperation creeping into his voice. They've tried everything, herbs, rituals, nothing works. But yesterday, you made him laugh. For the first time in 6 months, my son laughed. And then your gift, he gestured at my starlight patches. It brought life to dead ground. So I have to ask, can you heal what's broken inside him? I wanted to say no, wanted to explain that spiritual healing was different from physical healing, that mending a fractured soul required diving into someone's pain and carrying some of it yourself, that it would cost me, that I wasn't strong enough, that I was just a rejected wolf with a gift I barely understood. But then Calyx looked up at me with those clouded eyes and whispered, "Please?" And I couldn't say no to that. "I'll try," I said. Riven's eyes closed briefly, relief washing over his face. "Thank you." I settled beside Calyx on the furs, my heart hammering. This might feel strange, okay? I'm going to touch the places where you hurt, but not with my paws, with my gift. And it might bring up scary memories. If you want me to stop at any time, just say so. Calyx nodded, his small body trembling. I pressed my paw gently against his chest, right over his heart, and closed my eyes. The starlight patches on my fur flared to life, and I fell into his pain. It hit me like a avalanche, raw, suffocating grief mixed with terror so visceral I could taste it. I saw what Calyx saw, his mother, her white fur matted with blood, dying slowly while he stood frozen, unable to help. I felt what he felt, the helplessness, the guilt, the certainty that he should have done something but didn't know what. The cracks in his spirit weren't small. They were deep, jagged fractures that split his sense of safety into pieces. Every time he closed his eyes, he fell into them. Every nightmare drove them deeper. Tears streamed down my face as I worked, pouring light into the broken places. My starlight patches blazed so bright the entire chamber filled with silver radiance. I could feel my own energy draining, my own strength pouring into this traumatized cub, but I didn't stop, because I knew what it felt like to be broken and have no one care enough to try fixing you. I found the deepest crack, the one carved by guilt, the belief that his mother's death was somehow his fault, that if he'd been braver, stronger, better, she'd still be alive. "It wasn't your fault," I whispered, my voice echoing through the spiritual space we shared. "You were a cub. You couldn't have saved her, and she wouldn't want you carrying this." The crack resisted, sharp and vicious. So I did something I'd never done before. I took the guilt into myself, drew it out of Calyx's spirit and absorbed it, letting it settle into my own chest alongside all the other pain I already carried. It hurt. Gods, it hurt. Like swallowing broken glass. But Calyx's breathing eased. The trembling in his small body slowed. I kept going, mending each fracture one by one, sealing the cracks with light, rebuilding the foundation of his spirit until it could hold weight again without shattering. When I finally pulled back, gasping, my entire body was shaking. The starlight patches on my fur pulsed weakly, drained almost completely. But Calix's eyes were clear. Not empty, not haunted. Clear. "I feel lighter," he whispered, wonder filling his voice. "The heavy thing in my chest, it's smaller." I managed a weak smile. "Good." "What did you do?" Riven asked, his voice rough. I looked up at him, exhausted. "I mended the cracks, pulled out some of the pain, but he'll still grieve. That's normal and healthy. The difference is that now the grief won't destroy him. He can carry it without breaking." Riven stared at me like I'd just moved a mountain. Calix threw himself at me, wrapping his small body around mine. "Thank you," he sobbed into my fur. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." I held him, my own tears falling into his white fur, and something inside me that had been frozen since the rejection began to thaw. This was what my gift was for. Not to make me acceptable to a mate who didn't deserve me, not to prove I wasn't defective, but to heal the ones who were hurting so badly they couldn't see a way forward. Calix eventually fell asleep in my arms, his breathing deep and peaceful for the first time in 6 months. I carefully laid him on his furs and tried to stand, but my legs gave out. Riven caught me before I hit the ground, his strong body supporting my weight. "You gave too much," he said quietly, carrying me out of Calix's chamber. "He needed it." "And what about what you need?" I didn't have an answer for that. No one had asked me what I needed in a long time. Riven brought me to the main chamber and settled me on the silk bedding. But instead of leaving, he lay down beside me, his pure white fur pressed against my black and silver coat. "Do you understand what you just did?" he asked, his voice low and intense. "I healed your son." "You saved my son," Riven corrected. The healers said his spirit was dying, that eventually the cracks would get so deep he'd just fade. "And you, a wolf your own pack called defective, you pulled him back from the edge." I was too tired to argue, too drained to protect myself from the dangerous hope creeping into my chest. "My kingdom hasn't just found a healer," Riven continued, his amber eyes boring into mine. "We've found a source of prosperity. Your gift doesn't just mend the broken, it creates life where there was none. It brings hope where there was only despair." "I'm not—" "You are," he interrupted firmly. "And I'm starting to realize that the moon goddess didn't let me get shot with nightshade hemlock by accident. She put me in your path, put you in mine." My breath caught. "What are you saying?" Riven's gaze softened, and he nuzzled the largest starlight patch on my shoulder. It flared weakly, too drained to shine as bright as before, but still responding to his touch. "I'm saying that your former mate was the biggest fool in the northern realms," he murmured, "because he had a Luna who could bring kingdoms to their knees with her gift, and he threw her away." Luna. The word hung between us, heavy with meaning. "I'm not your Luna," I whispered. "I'm just—" "You're everything," Riven said quietly. "And I need you to stay, not just for Calix, not just for the kingdom." "Then why?" His eyes met mine, and what I saw there made my heart stop. "Because when I look at you, I don't see corruption, I see the future. And I'm terrified of what happens if you disappear." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he was saying, because it sounded like he was saying he wanted me. Not despite the starlight patches. Because of them. Riven. A howl split the air outside, sharp, urgent, wrong. Riven's head snapped toward the entrance, his entire body going rigid. Footsteps pounded toward us, and one of his guards burst in a gray wolf with wild eyes. "Alpha King," the guard panted. "There's a pack at the border. Their alpha demands an audience." "Who?" Riven growled. The guard's eyes flicked to me, and I saw the answer before he spoke it. "Drax Ironjaw of the Shadowpine Pack. He says he's here for his mate." Chapter 6. The Bitter Return. I heard Drax's voice before I saw him, and my entire body locked up. I'm not leaving without her. That voice. The one that had whispered promises in my ear during our brief courtship. The one that had declared me defective in front of witnesses. The one that had severed our bond and left me bleeding in the snow. Riven felt me freeze beside him. His massive body shifted, positioning himself between me and the den entrance like a wall of pure white fury. "You can barely stand," he said quietly. "Stay here." "No." The word came out stronger than I felt. "If he's here for me, I need to face him." Riven's amber eyes searched mine. "You don't owe him anything." I know, and I did know, intellectually. But 3 weeks of self-doubt and shame had carved deep grooves in my soul, and facing the wolf who'd convinced me I was worthless felt like walking back into a burning building. But I was done running. I forced myself to stand, my legs still weak from healing calyx. My starlight patches pulsed faintly against my black fur, dimmer than usual but still visible, still there. Still the thing Drax had called corruption. Riven stayed close as we walked to the border clearing, close enough that his scent wrapped around me like armor, close enough that I could feel the barely contained rage radiating from his body. And then I saw them. The Shadowpine Pack stood at the border, and they looked wrong, thin, sickly. Their fur was matted and dull, their eyes sunken. Some were coughing wet, painful sounds that echoed through the clearing. Others could barely stand. They were dying. And leading them, looking almost as bad as the rest, was Drax. His dark fur hung limp. His amber eyes, the ones that used to make my heart race, were bloodshot and desperate. When he saw me, something flickered across his face. Relief. Hope. It made me want to vomit. "Sable," he said, taking a step forward. Riven's growl stopped him cold. It was a sound I'd never heard before, deep, primal, the kind of warning that made every wolf in the clearing freeze instinctively. The Alpha King asserting dominance without even having to move. Drax's eyes flicked to Riven, widening slightly as recognition set in. "Alpha King, I mean no disrespect, but I'm here for my—" "She is not your mate," Riven cut him off, his voice like ice. "You severed that bond yourself, publicly, or have you forgotten?" Drax flinched. It was a mistake. A mistake. 3 weeks of wandering the frozen wasteland, 3 weeks of being treated like a disease, 3 weeks of crying myself to sleep while the phantom ache of a severed bond throbbed in my chest. A mistake. "You threw me out," I said, my voice shaking, not with fear. With rage. "You stood in front of the entire pack and called me corrupted. You said the moon goddess made a mistake. You said I was defective, unworthy, wrong." "I know what I said," Drax snapped, then seemed to remember where he was. He lowered his head, trying to look contrite. "But I was wrong, Sable. I see that now. The pack needs you. We're dying from a plague that our healers can't cure. But you're exceptional. You always have been. Please, come home and save us. Come home." Like he hadn't ripped that home away from me. Like I hadn't been exiled. Like the past 3 weeks hadn't happened. "Let me make sure I understand," I said slowly. "When my fur started changing, you called it a disease and rejected me. But now that your pack is actually diseased, you want me back." Drax had the audacity to look hopeful. "Yes, we need your gift." "You called my gift a curse." "I was wrong." "You called me a curse." My voice cracked, and the starlight patches on my fur flared brighter despite my exhaustion. You made every wolf in that pack believe I was tainted. You destroyed me, Drax, and now you show up here because you need something from me? The pack is dying, Sable. Drax's voice turned desperate. Children are sick, elders are suffering. You wouldn't let innocent wolves die just because I made a mistake, would you? The manipulation was so blatant it took my breath away. He was trying to guilt me, trying to make their suffering my responsibility when he was the one who'd thrown me away. Those wolves watched you reject me, I said quietly, and not one of them spoke up. Not one of them defended me. So forgive me if I don't feel particularly motivated to save them now. Sable, please. No. The word came out firm. Final. I'm not going back. Drax's expression hardened. You would condemn an entire pack because your feelings are hurt? My feelings? I laughed, the sound bitter. You didn't hurt my feelings, Drax. You destroyed me. You took something beautiful, something the moon goddess gave me, and convinced me it was rot. You made me believe I was broken. And I'm sorry. No, you're not, I shouted. You're desperate. There's a difference. You don't want me. You want my gift. And the moment I finish healing your pack, you'll go right back to being disgusted by the starlight patches you're currently pretending to tolerate. Silence fell over the clearing. Drax's jaw clenched. So that's it? You'll let us die? I'll let you face the consequences of your own choices, I corrected. Just like you let me face the consequences of a transformation I didn't ask for and couldn't control. Drax's eyes narrowed, and I saw the shift, the mask dropping, the real him bleeding through. You always were selfish, he snarled. Grandmother spoiled you, made you think you were special. But you're not. You're just a broken wolf with a defective gift. And I should have known better than to ever. He didn't finish the sentence, because Riven moved. One moment the Alpha King was standing beside me. The next, he was between us, a mountain of pure white fury with teeth bared and eyes blazing. Say one more word about her, Riven said softly, dangerously, and I will rip out your throat and leave your pack to bury what's left. Every wolf in the clearing went still. Drax stumbled backward, fear finally flickering across his face. She belongs to my kingdom now, Riven continued, his voice carrying across the clearing with absolute authority. The starlight belongs to the king, and if you or any member of your dying pack ever come near her again, I will consider it an act of war. You can't, Drax started. I am the Alpha King of the Northern Realms. Riven cut him off. I can do whatever I want. And what I want is for you to take your plague-ridden pack and leave my territory before I forget I'm supposed to be diplomatic. Drax looked past Riven to me, desperation and anger warring on his face. Sable. She has nothing to say to you, Riven growled. Leave, now. For a moment, I thought Drax might argue, might try to fight, but even sick and desperate, he wasn't stupid enough to challenge the Alpha King. He turned to his pack, his voice bitter. We're leaving. I watched them retreat, the wolves who'd watched my rejection without protest, now dying from a plague I could have cured. Part of me felt guilty. The healer in me hated seeing suffering I had the power to fix. But the broken wolf who'd spent 3 weeks believing she was defective? She felt nothing but cold satisfaction. As the Shadow Pine pack disappeared into the trees, Riven turned to me. His amber eyes were still blazing with protective fury, but underneath, I saw something else. Concern. Are you all right? He asked quietly. I opened my mouth to say yes, to brush it off, to pretend watching my former mate beg for my help hadn't ripped open every wound I'd been trying to heal. But instead, I collapsed. Riven caught me before I hit the ground, and the last thing I heard before darkness swallowed me was his voice, rough with panic. Sable, stay with me. Don't... But I was already gone. Chapter 7. Genuine Love. I woke to voices arguing in hushed, angry tones. Completely drained herself healing Calyx, and then that bastard shows up demanding more from her. Riven, you need to calm down. Calm down? He called her defective, Zeph, threw her into the Frostlands to die, and then had the audacity to come here and act like she owes him. I forced my eyes open. The main chamber. I was back on the silk bedding, and my entire body felt like I'd been trampled by a herd of elk. My starlight patches pulsed weakly against my black fur, barely glowing. Riven stood near the entrance with two wolves I didn't recognize, a scarred male with gray fur and a lean female with russet coloring. His elite guard, I realized. Zeph and Mira. She's awake, Mira said quietly. Riven spun around, and the raw fear on his face gutted me. In 2 strides, he was beside me, his amber eyes scanning my body like he was searching for injuries. How long? I croaked. 6 hours, Riven said, his voice rough. You collapsed after the confrontation. Your body just shut down. 6 hours. I'd been unconscious for 6 hours while Drax and his dying pack. Are they gone? I asked. Yes. Riven's jaw clenched. I made sure of it. Good. I didn't have the energy to face Drax again. Didn't have the strength to withstand another round of manipulation disguised as apology. You should rest, Riven started. No. I forced myself upright, ignoring the way my legs shook. I need to know. How bad is their plague? Riven's eyes darkened. It doesn't matter. It matters to me, because as much as I hated Drax, as much as the Shadowpine Pack had failed me, I was still a healer. And the thought of children suffering, of elders dying in pain, it clawed at something deep inside me. Mira did reconnaissance, Zeph said carefully. The plague is bad, respiratory, from what she could tell. Spreads fast. Without intervention, they have maybe 2 weeks before it wipes out half the pack. 2 weeks. My stomach twisted. You're not going back there, Riven said firmly, reading my expression. I won't allow it. You won't allow it? The words came out sharper than I intended. Riven's eyes flashed. That wolf destroyed you. I watched you collapse just from seeing him again. If you go back, if you try to heal that pack after everything they did. Then what? I challenged. I become just as cruel as they were? You become safe, Riven corrected. You stay here, where wolves actually value you, instead of treating you like a tool to be used and discarded. He wasn't wrong, but the guilt was already eating at me, whispering that I was letting innocent wolves suffer because their alpha was a bastard. There are children in that pack, I said quietly. Children who didn't choose to have Drax as their alpha, who didn't participate in my rejection, and you want me to let them die? I want you to choose yourself for once. Riven's voice rose, raw with frustration. You gave everything to save me. You drained yourself healing Calyx. You've spent your entire life putting everyone else first. And where has it gotten you? Rejected. Exiled, broken. The words hit like physical blows. So I should just let them die? I whispered. To prove a point? No, Riven said, his voice dropping. You should let them die because you matter. Because your life, your health, your peace, they're worth more than an entire pack of wolves who threw you away. I'd never had anyone say that to me before. Never had someone prioritize my well-being over what I could do for others. And it hurt. Gods, it hurt. Because part of me wanted to believe him. Wanted to stay here, safe and valued, and let the Shadowpine Pack face the consequences of their choices. But I couldn't. I'm a healer, I said, my voice breaking. It's not just what I do, it's who I am. And if I turn my back on dying wolves, even wolves who hurt me, I lose that. I become someone I don't recognize. Riven stared at me. something anguished flickering across his face. Even if it destroys you? Even then. Silence fell over the chamber. Zeph and Mira exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable witnessing this. Finally, Riven spoke, his voice carefully controlled. If you go back there, he'll hurt you again. Maybe not physically, but he'll find a way to twist the knife. To make you feel small. And his voice cracked, I can't watch that happen. Then don't watch, I said softly. But don't try to stop me either. Sable, please. I met his eyes. I know you're trying to protect me, but I need to do this. Not for Drax, not even for the pack, for me. Because if I don't, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if I became just as heartless as they were. Riven closed his eyes, his massive body trembling with the effort of restraining himself. When he opened them again, the look he gave me was pure agony. I can't lose you, he said, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. Not after I just found you. My breath caught. You won't lose me. You don't know that. His voice was raw, stripped of the Alpha King authority. Just a wolf who was terrified. You're already half dead from healing Calyx. If you go back there and drain yourself again, I'll be careful. That's not good enough. The words exploded out of him. Careful doesn't matter when you're facing a plague that's already killed dozens. Careful doesn't help when you're so desperate to prove you're not broken that you give pieces of yourself away until there's nothing left. The accusation hung in the air between us. He wasn't wrong. I was trying to prove something, trying to show that my gift was a blessing, not a curse, that I had value beyond what Drax had said about me. What do you want me to do? I asked, my voice small. Just abandon them? I want you to choose yourself, Riven said desperately. Just this once. Choose you. God, I wanted to stay here in this chamber with silk bedding and a wolf who looked at my starlight patches like they were sacred. Wanted to let the Shadowpine pack collapse without me. But I couldn't. I'm going, I said quietly. You can hate me for it. You can throw me out afterward, but I'm going. Riven flinched like I'd struck him. For a long moment, he just stared at me, something breaking behind his amber eyes. Then he turned to Zeph and Mira. Prepare an escort, 50 of our best warriors. I blinked. What? Riven looked back at me, his expression hard. If you're going to walk into a den of wolves who hurt you, you're not doing it alone. My warriors will surround you, protect you. And the moment the second Drax or anyone in that pack treats you with anything less than reverence, we're bringing you home. Riven. Those are my terms, he cut me off. You want to save them? Fine, but you do it under my protection. And when you're done, when you've healed their plague and proven whatever you need to prove, you come back here. To me. The possessiveness in his voice should have scared me, should have reminded me of Drax's controlling behavior. But it didn't. Because Drax had controlled me to keep me small, to keep me useful. Riven was trying to protect me because he couldn't stand the thought of me getting hurt again. Okay, I whispered. His eyes widened slightly. Okay, your warriors can come. But Riven, I met his gaze. I need you to trust that I know my limits, that I won't destroy myself for wolves who don't deserve it. Can you promise me that? He asked, desperate. I wanted to give him that reassurance, but we both knew I couldn't. Because when I saw dying children, I wouldn't be able to stop myself. I'd pour everything I had into saving them, consequences be damned. Riven saw the answer on my face, and something in him shattered. Then I'm coming with you, he said flatly. What? No. You don't get to sacrifice yourself without me there to drag you back, Riven growled. If you're walking into hell, I'm walking beside you. Chapter 8. The Moon Queen's Ascent. I stood at the edge of the sacred moon altar, and I couldn't stop shaking. It had been 3 days since we returned from the Shadowpine Pack. 3 days since I'd healed their plague, watched Drax's face twist with shame and rage as his wolves thanked me with tears in their eyes, and left that territory forever. 3 days since Riven had carried my half-conscious body back to the royal den and refused to leave my side while I recovered. And now, under a full moon that painted the snow silver, the entire northern realm had gathered to witness something I still couldn't believe was real. My coronation. "You don't have to do this," I whispered to Riven, who stood beside me in all his pure white glory. "If you say you're just a rejected wolf one more time," Riven interrupted quietly, "I'm going to lose my mind." Despite everything, I almost smiled. Almost. But the crowd was too large, too many eyes watching me, watching the black wolf with starlight patches who'd somehow ended up standing beside the Alpha King. I could hear the whispers, even from here. "Is that really her? The Life Weaver?" I heard she brought grass back to the dead play den. She healed the king's son, healed an entire plague pack. The prophecy. The prophecy. Everyone kept talking about the damn prophecy. An ancient seer named Lyra had appeared at the royal den 2 days ago, an elderly wolf with milky white eyes and a voice that sounded like wind through winter trees. She'd taken one look at me and Riven standing together and started crying. "The shadow starlight and the pure white king," she'd whispered. "The prophecy is fulfilled." I'd tried to argue that I wasn't part of any prophecy, that I was just a wolf who'd gotten lucky, but Lyra had silenced me with a look that said she knew things I couldn't begin to understand. And now she stood at the moon altar, waiting to crown me. Me. A wolf who'd been thrown away like garbage 3 weeks ago. "I can't do this," I said, my voice cracking. "Riven, I can't." "Yes, you can." His amber eyes met mine, fierce and certain. "You saved my life. You healed my son. You proved that your gift isn't a curse, it's the most powerful blessing the moon goddess can grant. And now you're going to stand beside me and let the realm see what I see." "Which is what?" I whispered. "Everything." Before I could respond, Lyra's voice rang out across the clearing. "Wolves of the Northern Realm," she called, her voice carrying despite her age. "We gather under the full moon to witness the fulfillment of a prophecy spoken generations ago. A prophecy that said when darkness and light stood together, when shadow embraced starlight, the realm would know true prosperity." The crowd went silent. Lyra turned to me, her milky eyes somehow seeing straight through to my soul. "Sable, rejected daughter of the Shadowpine Pack, step forward." My legs didn't want to move, but Riven's gentle nudge against my shoulder gave me the courage to take one step, then another, until I stood before the ancient seer, my starlight patches pulsing with nervous energy. "You were cast out for bearing the mark of the Weaver," Lyra continued, "called corrupted, defective, broken, but the moon goddess does not make mistakes. She marked you with starlight, because she has always known that you would be the one to save us all." "I didn't save anyone," I protested weakly. I did what any healer would do." "No," Lyra said firmly. "Any healer would have treated the wounds. You mended souls, brought life to dead ground, turned poison into light. You didn't just heal bodies, you healed hope." Tears burned behind my eyes. I tried to blink them back, but they fell anyway, hot and fast down my fur. "For too long, wolves have believed that power comes from strength alone," Lyra said, her voice rising. "From dominance, from fear. But you, Shadow Starlight, have shown us a different kind of power. The power to choose love over bitterness, to save those who hurt you, to transform suffering into something beautiful." She lifted a crown delicate and woven from silver birch branches that seemed to glow with their own light. "Kneel," Lyra commanded gently. I knelt, my body trembling. The crown settled on my head, and the moment it touched me, my starlight patches exploded with light, brighter than they'd ever been. So bright the entire clearing was bathed in silver radiance that made the snow sparkle like diamonds. Gasps echoed through the crowd. "Rise, Luna of the Northern Realm," Lyra said. "Rise, and take your place beside the king." I stood on shaking legs, and Riven was there, his pure white fur pressed against my black and starlight coat. The visual contrast was stark, night and day, shadow and light. Two wolves who shouldn't have fit together but somehow created something whole. The crowd erupted in howls long, echoing calls that resonated through the frozen wilderness. Acceptance, celebration, welcome. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a mistake. "They love you," Riven murmured against my ear. "They love what I can do for them," I corrected. "Old wounds making me doubt." "No." Riven turned to face me fully, his amber eyes burning with intensity. "They love you because you showed them that the things we call curses are often blessings in disguise. That beauty isn't defined by what we look like, but by those who have the heart to cherish it." My breath caught. "When I found you in the Frostlands," Riven continued, his voice low enough that only I could hear, "I was dying, not just from the poison, from loneliness, from grief, from the weight of being king without anyone who saw me instead of the crown." "Riven, but you saw me," he said, "a stranger bleeding in the snow, and you chose to save me anyway, not because I was king, but because your heart is so full of light that you can't help but share it." The tears were falling freely now, and I didn't care who saw. "I don't know how to be a Luna," I whispered. "I don't know how to be worthy of this." "You already are." Riven nuzzled the largest starlight patch on my shoulder, and it flared so bright it rivaled the moon itself. "You've always been worthy. Your former pack was just too blind to see it." "And you're not blind?" His eyes met mine, and what I saw there stole my breath. "I see everything," he said quietly. "I see a wolf who was told she was broken and chose to heal others anyway. I see starlight wrapped in shadow, creating something the realm has never seen before, and I see my mate." The word hung between us. "Mate. The moon goddess brought you to me," Riven continued, his voice rough with emotion. "Put you in my path when I needed you most, and I'm not fool enough to let you go. Even though I'm—" "Perfect," he interrupted, "exactly as you are." The starlight patches across my entire body ignited, blazing with a warmth that spread through the clearing like a wave. And where the light touched, impossible things happened. Flowers pushed through the snow, frost melted. The air itself seemed to warm, just slightly, just enough to remind everyone that spring would come again. The crowd's howls grew louder, more reverent. Lyra smiled, her milky eyes knowing. "The prophecy is fulfilled," she called out. "The shadow starlight and the pure white king will rule together, and the realm will know prosperity." Riven lowered his head until his forehead pressed against mine. "Will you have me?" he whispered. "Not as your king, as your mate." 3 weeks ago, I'd been rejected, thrown away, told I was defective and unworthy of love. And now the most powerful wolf in the Northern Realm was asking if I'd have him. "Yes," I whispered back, my voice breaking. "Gods, yes." The bond snapped into place, not like the broken, painful thing Drax had severed, but like coming home, like finding the piece of myself I didn't know was missing. It settled warm and right in my chest, pulsing in perfect rhythm with Riven's heartbeat. Our starlight and white fur glowed together, creating a radiance that painted the entire clearing in silver and gold. And as Riven claimed me with a gentle bite to my shoulder, the traditional mate mark that would tell every wolf in the realm I was his, I finally understood. What Drax had called corruption was actually transformation. What my pack had seen as a curse was the moon goddess preparing me for something greater. I wasn't broken. I never had been. I was exactly what I needed to be. And as I stood beside Riven under the full moon, crowned and claimed and loved, I knew I was finally home. Listen to me. If this story made you feel something, if Sable's pain reminded you of your own rejection, your own heartbreak, your own moment of being thrown away, then you owe it to yourself and every other broken soul out there to fight for this story. The algorithm doesn't care about your tears. It cares about your action. Like this video. Comment right now, tell me one word that describes how you feel. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their curse might actually be their greatest gift. Judy's romance library survives because you make noise. Silent listeners don't move mountains. You do. So stop lurking and start fighting for the stories that matter. Drop that comment. Hit that like. Share this everywhere. Do it now. Do it for Sable. Do it for every rejected soul who needs to know they're not broken. Thank you.